Even in the most dysfunctional and toxic workplaces and environments, a certain kind of person and leader could be found. These people were not affected by their environments. This ability to thrive in caustic environments was linked to their ability, and hear this, to find a sense of meaning outside of their environment. Creative minorities, therefore, not only survive, but they learn to thrive in hostile environments. In a caustic, corrosive third culture, which he views as our kind of place that we live in now, which causes us to question and doubt our commitments, we need extremophile disciples. Disciples who are resilient. How did Ezekiel want to build extremophile disciples? How did he build a people with resilience? He prophesied about a city that was so different from the world that they lived in. John, who all of his churches were facing struggles of whether they collapse into Rome, whether they give into the culture of Rome, whether they sacrifice at idols, he needed to find a way to turn them into these resilient, extremophile disciples who would live in the most difficult of environments. What does he do? How does he finish this book? He prophesies about a city yet again. And today, for us who live in an environment that is increasingly becoming difficult to hold an understanding or presence of faith, I present to you again a vision of a city different from our world, different from the place that we live in, a vision of a city that can critique our understanding that when we look around this world, we don't have to see it as the only option. When you go to university, you don't have to feel like you have to just pick between regressive past and then like progressive secularism. There's a third way. There's a new Jerusalem that God is offering. There is another hope for this earth rather than these binaries we keep on getting stuck in all the time. There's another hope rather than spending every night just doing the same thing because that's all you have emotional capacity for. There's more to life than just trying to achieve the Kiwi dream, get your quarter-acre section, get in your house, and then sit behind your walls and get depressed because you don't know anyone. There's another story. There is another city on offer. And heaven is not just our insurance policy that we're banking on for when we die. Heaven, this new Jerusalem, is a vision which inspires us to see right now differently, to see our world differently, to imagine it renewed by the presence of God. Martin Luther King, I think, said it incredibly well. In his sermon called The Promised Land, he says, "It's all right to talk about long white robes over yonder in all of its symbolism. But ultimately, people want some suits and some dresses and some shoes to wear down here. It's all right to talk about streets flowing with milk and honey, but God has commanded us to be concerned about the slums down here and his children who can't eat 3 square meals a day. It's all right to talk about the new Jerusalem, but one day God's preacher must talk about the new New York, the new Atlanta, the new Philadelphia, the new Los Angeles, the new Memphis, the new Tennessee. This is what we have to do." Heaven should inspire us to be looking around, imagining a new Tauranga, a new Papamoa, a new Golden Sands. If we were to take that city and allow it to inspire our vision for now, how differently would things be? You know, one of my prayers, what if every single time the church got together, rather than fighting about all the things that don't matter, what if the main question we asked ourselves is, what would it look like if there was a new Tauranga? What would it look like if there was a new Papamoa? If God's presence came down here. We've got this eldership nomination, right? We got this booklet, and we're probably going to faff about talking about a whole bunch of things we don't really care about, health and safety policies, police vetting, and that's important, we do. But how beautiful would it be if these 5 people, every time they got together, one of the main things they were asking is, what would it look like if there was a new Papamoa, and how can we be a part of it? What would it look like if we gave ourselves to this vision of a new Jerusalem coming down to earth and transforming how life looks now? If we were to put language around that, in the new Tauranga, there would be no more. There would be no more homelessness. In the new Tauranga, there would be no more isolation. In the new Tauranga, there would be no more depression or mental illness. In the new Tauranga, there would be no more loneliness or kids who have to grow up without families. In the new Tauranga, what would there be? And then on the flip side, what if we spent every day asking, in the new Tauranga, there will be relationships. In the new Tauranga, there will be houses for everyone who needs one. In the new Tauranga, we will be loved. In the new Tauranga, we won't need to be strangers or terrified of meeting new people. In the new Tauranga, we may not need to lock our doors. Can you imagine what we would be like as a community if that was the vision that was constantly before our eyes? You can put up with a whole lot more when you know why you're there. You can put up with a whole lot more difficulty. You can put up with a whole lot more challenges. You can put up with a caustic environment, a hostile environment to faith, when you have a vision of where you're going. If you know why you're here. Honestly, I think this is one of the biggest questions from Revelation that we as a church are going to need to grapple with. I think this is one of the biggest things that we need to sit with and let it transform our lives. Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't plant a church just so we could have nice Sundays. I didn't plant a church just so we could be comfortable in here and talk about the things that matter to us and then go home and then watch Netflix again all week and then come back and hear another inspiring message. That's not what we're doing here. I'm not here so we can pat ourselves in the back and feel good, just be like, yeah, we did a nice thing, we got some more people. Cool. We have lands out in Golden Sands. We're not out there just to build another building just so that we can feel better about ourselves. We're not. That's not why we are here. I have no interest in that. If you're looking for a church community where you can just sit on your butt and be comfortable, this may not be the place for you. Because I think God has filled us with so much potential to imagine a different society. One of the reasons Ken and I were so passionate about that building is because that can be a physical representation of what the new Tauranga could look like. What if that building begins to create a new Golden Sands in that little microcosm whenever people encounter it? When they go onto those grounds and they go into that building and they meet those people, it's like they're walking into the new Papamoa that God will eventually bring. This matters. This is huge. And if our church held on to this vision, all things made new, I'm happy to give my life towards that. I'm happy to push through the difficulties. I'm happy to sweat here on Sundays with you. I'm happy to deal with the phone calls and the tragedies. I'm happy to walk through with your pain and your hurts. I'm happy for us to go through that journey together if we know why we're here and if we know where we're going. And it is not here just to play nice on Sundays. That's not it. That's not it. Ken, you've not sacrificed just so much so that we can have just a nice church on Sundays. That's not what we're here for. We are here because God's presence has a plan for our city. God longs to bring his light and his life to so many people in our community who desperately need to experience his love, and Papamoa needs it. Kai Aroha, one of the homeless feeding groups, has just set up posts here on Fridays because they recognize the great need in Papamoa. It's not just Welcome Bay, it's here with us. And we have a duty to respond to that. How? I don't have a clue. I don't know. But we could. Because together we can hear Jesus and we could hear his call. Can you imagine it? What would it look like? A new Tauranga, a new Papamoa. Shout it out. What would it be? Use your imagination. If there was a new Papamoa, there would be no more what?
Drugs.
No more drugs. That would be gone. In a new Papamoa, there would be no more domestic violence. Come on. In a new Papamoa, there would be no more suicide, crime. Come on, let it fill your vision. In a new Papamoa, there would be no more hunger, racism. In a new Papamoa, there would be no more fear. In a new Papamoa, there would be no more parking wardens. Hallelujah. Yes. What would renewed transport look like in our city? And now let's flip it. In a new Papamoa, we've gone through what there will be no more of. In a new Papamoa, there will be what? There would be a whole lot of mess because the prostitutes and the homeless would move here because they know they would be loved here. Come on. In Papamoa, there would be what? No more half-filled rubbish tins we would share. Imagine if rubbish is totally, we worked all together, where we're actually in harmony with our environment, not creating heaps of junk just to survive. What would that look like? In a new Papamoa, there would be what? More recycle stations and a composting section. Exactly. In a new Papamoa, there would be what? Community gardens. Laughter. In a new Papamoa, there would be laughter. In a new Papamoa, there would be love. In a new Papamoa, there would be hope. Come on. God's Spirit. There would be a sense of belonging here. And in New Papamoa, there would be more of God, God's presence. Yeah. Imagine if that was the heartbeat of our church. Every time we got together, every time we're praying, every time we're getting together, we're not getting hung up on whether the music was good this week, or whether Colin preached a good enough sermon this week, or whether that came together the way that we'd like, or whether it was hot enough, or whether it was cold enough. What if we let go of all those things and we embraced becoming extremophiles? When we begin to live in an environment, in a situation that is difficult, and no one thought it could thrive, and no one thought there could be a church planted here, and no one thought we'd be able to get a building up there, but we said, you know what? That's okay, because when the world takes everything away from us, we find we still have Jesus. And that's all we need to live. That's all we need to survive. He is all that we need to thrive. And we are willing to let go of everything else. Imagine if when someone engaged with someone from Golden Sands Baptist, they knew, flip, man, they don't care. They don't sweat about the small stuff, do they? They're in it for the long haul. They're in it to see God's kingdom flood out from this place and transform Papamoa and Tauranga for his kingdom. That's a church I'd be willing to give my life to. That's a gospel I'd be willing to give my life to. That's a vision that I would be willing to endure a lot of pain for, to experience some pushback for, to sweat with you on Sundays for, to freeze with you in winter for. Because I can see that city that God wants to bring, and he is calling all of us to be a part of it. All things new. All things new. All things new.